The Russian offensive against Ukraine today enters its 334th day, and we're tracking the impact of the war on that country. Now, following intense pressure from NATO to provide Ukraine with Leopard 2 tanks, Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock says the country would authorize Poland to send the tanks if Warsaw makes a request. This comes as German Chancellor Olaf Scholz held talks with President Macron in Paris in an attempt to renew the alliance.
In recent weeks, Germany has come under pressure and criticism over her reluctance in supplying Leopard 2 tanks to bolster Ukraine's fighting capacity. Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has said Berlin will allow Poland send German-made Leopard tanks to Ukraine to help Kyiv fight the Russian invasion if Warsaw made a request. The comment appeared to signal Germany's readiness to authorize European countries deliver the tanks to Ukraine amid growing pressure from Kyiv and other allies for such a move. Ukraine has repeatedly asked Western allies to deliver more and faster military aid to the war-torn country. So far, no Western-designed main battle tanks have been delivered to Ukraine for defensive combat against invading Russian forces. Happening elsewhere, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited French President Emmanuel Macron as the two leaders hoped to overcome differences laid bare by the Ukraine war. The German leader visited the French capital for a day of ceremonies marking 60 years since a landmark treaty sealed a bond between the longtime enemies. Olaf Scholz called for unity between the two nations so as to shape the present and future of Europe and described the European peace project as a turning point amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February last year. Russia's invasion of its neighboring country has exposed differences in strategy between the two nations, notably in European talks about how to deal with the resulting energy crisis and punishing inflation.
And for more on this development, global affairs analyst Sam Fatty joins me now on the What Now. Good to have you join us.
My pleasure.
So I want to begin with the 60-year post-war cooperation between France and Germany. The Franco-German relations is often described as the motto of Europe. But how much do you think that the Ukraine-Russian war has put a strain on their relations?
Well, the Ukraine-Russian war is an example pretty much of saying that agreement or that treaty is there, it exists. However, Germany and France continue to find it always difficult to find common grounds when it comes to diplomatic or even military collaboration during the times of war. Currently, what is happening with in Europe, everybody's got an agreement with how to support Russia. And that is usually, even unlike before, now it's harder because they are looking at their economic interest, their energy interest. And mind you, Russia is supplying gas to many of these European countries. It's wintertime, and also some of these gas can even be used to convert to electricity. And so that is very critical to their energy sector, which is critical and key to their economic development as well. So it makes it very difficult as to what country is supposed to do what, because Russia is looking at it from the point of view of, look, a certain country being involved or even supplying something is a direct involvement. While they may not directly attack you, they will see also how to make you pay for helping Ukraine stand up against Moscow.
And there are indications and suggestions that France might be getting impatient with Germany's caution and hesitancy to send the tanks to Ukraine. Because France is already sending light tanks to Ukraine. And when you look at how both countries have responded to the war so far, do you think that it further highlights the differences in the system of management culture and just generally ideas in both countries?
Look, France can send their light tanks. You know, France's energy dependency on Germany is very low. But if you look at France's dependency on Russia is very low. But if you look at Germany's dependency on Russia in terms of energy is absolutely high. So there are certain things that they may not like to risk at all. However, they like we've seen these past days, they have been able to find some form of diplomatic common ground here in terms of, look, okay, Germany doesn't have to send it directly, but Germany supplied other countries that are not at war with Russia, and they have these tanks, and then those countries are supporting Ukraine. Ukraine's protection is critical to the national security of those countries. How about those countries take that German technology and export it? It's their tanks, and export it to Ukraine. And Germany would authorize that. If they need more supplies, if they need parts and stuff, those countries can order it and then continue to give it to Ukraine. So they are going to find that possibility. So most people cannot say, look, you are supplying Ukraine. No, Germany will not be supplying Ukraine. It's other countries that have military supply agreements with Germany is supplying Ukraine. So they do not want to be the direct supplier, but they can use an indirect route. And I think that's fair enough.
But why do you think Germany doesn't want to supply the tanks directly?
Again, that is just to protect some of their energy sector agreements with Russia. Mind you, there have been several sanctions against Russia. Even at the beginning of this war, about a year ago, we analyzed it here that they would find it hard to find common ground on certain things, especially on certain sanctions. That is why Russia has been sanctioned on so many things, from banking, etc. But they avoided putting sanctions on its energy sector. Especially on the gas, because of the energy need in Germany and certain European countries. Now, of course, Germany and other European countries did try to see what other alternative they can use. For example, can they get supplies from America? But that is going to be very difficult. We have seen pipelines to Sweden getting blown up, and then there was an investigation regarding that. But you see, the energy part is very critical. So they don't want to mess that up at all. So there's no other way sensibly to do this than to do an indirect supply through another country, and then of course this time Poland.
But where does this leave Germany in terms of its status and reputation in Europe and with its Western allies?
No, I think every statesman, anybody involved in national security and statecraft, usually when you say national security, most people think about the military and the police and internal security and homeland security. But national security it's about corruption and energy sector and energy sector and cybersecurity. All these are part of important national security stuff. So again, for Germany, the most critical part of this is its energy sector. Now, just like the way they needed to find common ground in terms of what sanctions to put on Russia at the start of this war, is the same strategy now they are using to find common ground on how to send these weapons or other critical supplies that the Ukrainian government and its troops are going to need. I think it's the right base approach. Any country would understand how they have to protect their own interests to a certain degree.
And talking about common grounds, I was speaking with an analyst over the weekend who asked a question I'm going to ask you now, because it's something that I heard from Lithuania's foreign minister, who has now one of the foreign minister, and I know that the ambassador has now been sent packing from Russia. But he was saying that, look, Ukraine has to win this war for peace to reign for peace and security to reign in Europe, and for the world to return to the global security order before the war. Do you agree with that assertion?
Certainly, there is no doubt about that. I mean, Russian troops have to push that. Ukraine has to win this by any means necessary. I mean, if we want the global order to go back to where it needs to be, and if not, I mean, it can get worse. If Russia wins this war, and they take over a huge chunk of Ukraine, even if we say there is peace, I would say that's going to be very, very fragile peace. Then probably in the next half a century, or even in the next 20 or 30 years, you will see some war with Russians, future generation of Russians, historically try to reclaim those lands again. I mean, we would see that in terms of Crimea. Even if Ukraine wins this war and they don't have Crimea, you can bet maybe we will no longer be here. but there's going to be attempts by Ukrainians. I mean, nationalism is in every country, so they can reclaim those lands that they believe is theirs. We are seeing it between around Armenia and East neighbors like Turkmenistan having the same similar issues. So it's very critical and very important for Ukraine to win this war. Now, if Ukraine wins this war, obviously that's going to completely demoralize Russia and make a mockery of them. But I think that would result to some important or critical stability in that region and in containing some of the excesses of Moscow.
Do you also see, do you think that there's still a possibility for diplomatic solution and negotiations?
There is some possibility, but it's very, very slim. A possibility is a possibility. You don't completely rule it out. However, it isn't going to be a fair negotiation. So they are at a standstill. I don't think it's going to be a fair negotiation. So, which means likely we will see this war drag on, some form of occupation, just like Russia have done in Afghanistan, until they are tired, until it is not politically fit for the Kremlin and for Putin to continue to do that, and then they will withdraw. So pretty much Ukraine has to keep holding their positions and pushing them back little by little, even if they can push them back. If the Russians are never able to take over Kiev, and if they are able to push them and make them stay within the border areas, when it becomes politically unfit for Putin to do so, they would withdraw. And if they withdraw, that means Ukraine has won the war.
Global Affairs analyst Fateh, thank you for talking to us.
My pleasure.